The tariff war initiated by Donald Trump could either strengthen America's position or empower its opponents, impacting the global economy. Already, it is affecting trade relations, particularly with Canada, which is striving to reduce its dependency on the United States. In February 2025, Trump raised tariffs on Canadian goods, citing issues like illegal immigration and the fentanyl crisis. In response, Canada imposed 25% tariffs on American products, including beverages, cosmetics, and paper goods, totaling 30 billion Canadian dollars, 20 billion USD. This is just the beginning. The second wave of tariffs will target larger industries such as automotive, steel, aluminum, meat, dairy, and aerospace. Expected tariffs will amount to 125 billion Canadian dollars, 85 billion USD. Are we on the brink of a full-scale trade war? How will this affect energy prices, inflation, and global markets? Could this war lead to a crisis, disrupting supply chains? Trump introduced 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, including paper, automobiles, and food products, which will lead to price increases for these goods in the U.S. In return, Canada imposed similar tariffs on U.S. goods worth 30 billion USD. Canadian gas and oil are still subject to light tariffs, but an increase is expected in February. This is significant since the U.S. heavily depends on Canadian gas, especially in winter. Trump justifies these actions as part of the fight against illegal immigration and drug trafficking, claiming that fentanyl from Canada is destroying American families. However, many experts believe the real goal is to pressure Canada into better trade terms. In response, Canada is ready to hit back at the U.S. Canada imposed tariffs on American goods, including beer, bourbon, and orange juice, as well as taxes on clothing, sports equipment, and home appliances. These measures target American jobs and manufacturers. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau warned that tariffs could lead to factory closures and increased prices for goods and fuel. The U.S. and Canada share one of the largest trade relationships in the world, exchanging goods worth $2.5 billion daily. In 2023, Canada exported 550 billion Canadian dollars to the U.S., which accounts for over 75% of all Canadian exports. This is crucial, as trade with the U.S. supports 2.5 million jobs in Canada. In such a situation, a prolonged trade war is unfeasible. At the last moment, Trump paused the tariffs for 30 days. This decision followed a phone call with Trudeau, during which Canada agreed to enhance border security, investing $1.3 billion in new technologies and helicopters. Trudeau also promised to appoint a fentanyl czar and designate drug cartels as terrorists. These measures could cost Canada $200 billion. While the tariffs are frozen, their timeline remains limited. If the promises are not fulfilled, Trump could reinstate the tariffs, leading to a new trade war. Economists warn that the damage from this conflict could be significant and long-lasting. American tariffs will severely impact Canada, particularly in sectors like energy, agriculture, and forestry, where there is a heavy reliance on trade with the U.S. The oil industry, for example, faces a 10% tariff, which could lead to significant financial losses. Canadian lumber, paper, and grain producers, who export 96% of their products to the U.S., will be in a tough spot. If tariffs make goods too expensive, demand will drop, and Canadian companies will be trapped. This will also affect the economy as a whole, slowing down production and reducing jobs. Additionally, supply chain issues will increase costs and cause delays. In the event of a conflict escalation, restrictions on energy exports could seriously affect Eastern Canada, which is highly dependent on American imports. As a result, a trade war will not only create financial hardship, but also redistribute global economic alliances. Canada is once again facing a choice: continue to depend on the U.S. or diversify its economy. Historically, the country made the choice of economic integration with the U.S. in 1988, which led to growth but also made Canada vulnerable to Washington's policies. Now, due to the new tariffs and the political situation, Canada is focusing on diversification, expanding ties with Asian countries like China, Japan, and South Korea. This is especially important for Canada's oil industry, which is seeking new buyers in Asia, reducing dependence on the U.S. In 2024, the Chinese company Rangan Petrochemical made an important purchase of Canadian oil, strengthening energy cooperation. China is also Canada's second-largest trading partner, highlighting the importance of expanding trade relations for its economy. For Canada, entering the Asian markets is not just an opportunity, but a necessity for economic stability. The push to reduce dependence on the U.S. is driving Canada to strengthen its relationships with China, Japan, and South Korea, including cooperation in energy, agriculture, and high-tech industries. However, this decision brings new challenges. The U.S. perceives China's growing presence in Canada as a threat, particularly in sectors like oil, agriculture, and mining, creating new geopolitical risks. Diversification helps reduce vulnerability to U.S. tariffs, but opens Canada up to new risks. The main task is finding a balance between expanding trade ties with Asian countries and maintaining independence in a world of growing instability. The coming years will be crucial for Canada's strategy. Despite the temporary lifting of the tariff threat, uncertainty remains. If Trump imposes long-term tariffs of 25%, economists predict a recession within 6 months, with up to 100,000 jobs potentially lost. The recession will begin with a shock in the first 2 years, and prolonged stagnation could last up to 3 years. For the U.S., with its larger economy, the impact will be less severe. But for Canada, where foreign trade is critical, the consequences will be much harsher. Despite this, Canada has opportunities to adapt and maintain economic stability in the future. Ottawa understands that Trump has his weaknesses, which Canada can leverage. His promise to keep prices low and support key industries in swing states gives Canada a chance to pressure Washington to ease or delay tariffs before the conflict escalates into a trade war. However, many experts believe this is just the first stage of a protracted standoff. Trudeau's response to the tariff threat has been criticized, with many viewing it as a concession rather than a decisive move. If tariffs remain in place on both sides, the consequences will be felt soon. Rising inflation, slower growth, and for Canada, whose economy heavily depends on foreign trade, it will be especially painful. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem warns that the rising cost of American imports will lead to inflation and a decline in GDP. Growth forecasts for 2025-2026 have already been revised down to 1.8%, partly due to migration policy. If tariffs come into effect, Canada will face a double blow: inflation and an economic slowdown. Canada's future depends on strategic decisions in trade policy and flexibility in monetary policy. The question remains, will this trade war reshape North America's economy for years to come, or will a catastrophe be avoided?